Well, for some analysis of that visit, we can speak to Andreas Craig of the Defence Studies Department at King's College London. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Craig. Mike Pompeo's visit to the Golan Heights marks an unprecedented break with previous US foreign policy and indeed the international position on this site. What sort of message is the Trump administration sending here diplomatically?
Hi. As you rightly say, this is a farewell tour, and it's mostly about symbolism. And it kind of is the end of what were 4 years, which were staunchly pro-Israel and in support of the far right in Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. So what we see now is that Bibi Netanyahu is obviously under immense pressure domestically, and here he gets another farewell gift by Mike Pompeo and the Trump administration by basically showing that the Americans are supporting the Israeli position on the Golan Heights, as well as the Israeli position on the West Bank and settlements, because that's also something that's on the line for Mike Pompeo. So it's highly symbolic. It's something that obviously doesn't change the international environment. It doesn't change international law. It changes a bit the norms, and it creates certain fait accomplis which have to be made undone by the new Biden administration coming in January. And I think that's where probably this is going. It's kind of doubling down on the achievements and hoping that the Biden administration will find it very difficult to reverse that.
Now, this comes as the United States reinforces sanctions on Iran, a country that Israel considers to be its most serious enemy and indeed threat. How do you see this visit playing out in the region in the current context?
Exactly, and I think that's the subheading of all of this, what's going on here. So this is not about the Golan Heights, this is not about the West Bank, this is not about the peace process, but this is about a Donald Trump that in the last 70 days of his office wants to create more fait accomplis and potentially provoke Iran into a military confrontation. And we've seen over the last couple of days and weeks that there is an intensified talks between the DOD, the Defense Department in Washington, as well as the Ministry of Defense in Israel, about potential ways and avenues to strike Iranian proxies in Syria. And they've done so over the last couple of days, and potentially striking Iranian proxies in Iraq and provoking something of a military confrontation, albeit indirect. And I think that's where the risk is, because Donald Trump is someone who's obviously, he knows he's on the way out, even if he doesn't concede. But he also knows that he has a one-time opportunity to create havoc in the region and, support those people who he ideologically supports on Iran, which is the far right in the neoconservatives in America, as well as the far right in Israel, and obviously people in Saudi Arabia and the UAE who also want some stronger position on Iran. So I think this is a very dangerous situation. I hope that the Israeli security establishment will tell the Americans that there are no feasible options here to strike Iran directly, but potential options to strike Iran indirectly within Syria. But all that is obviously at a highly delicate point where things could flare up in the entire region as Trump is leaving office, and the transition is creating a potential constitutional crisis in America.
Now, looking ahead to the next American administration, it should certainly represent a break from the Trump policies in Israel. But just briefly, what do you see as the top priorities on Joe Biden's agenda there?
I think Biden has already made it clear that he doesn't see maximum pressure as having worked on Iran. He wants an approach of engagement, possibly going back to the JCPOA. And when it comes to the peace process in the Middle East, I think what we will see there is that he will definitely reverse the statement by the Trump administration of saying that the settlements are not illegal. He will take a position of saying they are illegal. But what he won't do is probably moving the embassy back from Jerusalem to Tel Aviv.
Thank you very much, Mr. Craig, speaking to us there from the King's College in London.